Hey Patrick, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. I absolutely loved your book.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah.
I think it's really the best book about business planning what I read in the last 5+ years. So really looking forward to discussing this with you.
Yeah, that's a big honor. Yeah, thank you for being on your show.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hey, I think your book starts with the notion that traditional and linear innovation processes are no longer, let's say, viable today. And you mentioned, let's say, several gaps. There's, for instance, the speed gaps. But on the other hand, those linear models served us so well the last 200 years. They brought about, the industrial revolution. They brought innovation in the IT space. We ran the entire space race with it. So what are exactly, let's say, the shortcomings of the model, and why should we change it?
Yeah, so on the one hand, ever since I started my career, that is quite some years ago, every year hear about the speed of the market and the speed is increasing.
Yeah,
And that is a factor, especially now when AI came into the game. But, the world does not move linear. And that's the way we happen to believe. But that has been since the introduction of the internet that has changed. So you see that customer needs are changing, technology is changing, and markets also change in real time. But if you look at the traditional innovation, it is more sequential, slow, and also it operates in silos. So
yeah.
meaning that if you take that process for too long, by the time you launch, the reality also has changed. So I think we need to be aware of the fact that the world doesn't move linear. Everything happens at the same time. And also right now you see that things like geopolitical factors are also part of the game, including inflation. So it's a constant change, and it's not linear at all. So we need to
Hmm.
come up with a different approach.
Yeah, yeah. Because when I read, let's say, the first part of your book, it reminded me of what a former CEO of Xerox once said in interviews. She said, "In Xerox, we tended not to release products; they more or less escaped."
Yeah, yeah, that's very interesting saying. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and I think that um, when you look at that, then a lot of organizations they operate in silos.
yeah.
So when you once see that, you cannot unsee that anymore. And I think also these silos are a big factor of creating like lower speed inside organizations. And the companies who are not able to break those silos, they have a real challenge at the moment.
Yeah, I think so because I think the point is a little bit. I think that things like milestones and quality gates, etc., were originally designed to enhance, enrich the process, but I think they more fall back that people see it as their role to basically do a kind of second guessing exercise. If you understand what I mean, it almost
Yeah, yeah.
becomes a battle of the people who did the first phase, basically defending their solution, and the people who are take over the baton to put it in as the Veterans feel it is their role to really challenge if this is really, let's say, the right solution that we should be working on and adapting as a company. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
there seems
yeah.
to be this kind of built-in tension. Hey, if I summarize the book and maybe very, let's say, short, because I think that's important also for our listeners. If I were to summarize the book, then I would say it's almost a plea for a real-time AI-supported, customer-centric, collaborative model to successfully drive innovation. Does that kind of describe the book, or are some essential
Yeah,
elements missing?
yeah, so we started this book in co-creation with 250 people. And
Yeah,
then the first question I asked is, what is it that you're looking for to address in this co-creation process? And few things came out. One is like, what are the tools that we are using right now? What tools need to be replaced or improved? But mostly, how do we as human cooperate with AI. And going through this process, we were looking at this notion of we used to have a paper canvas, like the business model canvas, value proposition canvas. But now, when that lives in the digital world, it has different behavior, a different application. And seeing that, then we actually learned that it is about applying AI, but then
Hmm.
you should do this as a team to look at the AI results all the same and as a team and to have access on the same information. Meaning, if I'm a part of an innovation team and in Claude, I do a market research and I bring in the market research, somebody else need to look into that, need to understand what is the prompt that you used. And maybe I already have a market research. So you just need to have a level playing field to understand what that is about. So I started to learn that having insights in the AI engine on how that is used, then this notion of collaboration is the key thing there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think that collaboration is really, let's say, the key element, because it's what I like about it is that you almost do a kind of 90-degree change of the process. So rather than making it linear, you basically involve, let's say, everyone right from the start in a collaborative environment, and you basically focus on a common goal rather than basically, well, there's let's say the exploration team that identified something, then the design team is going to work, then you have etc. etc. By bringing in everyone from the start, you basically create, a much stronger common perspective and a common vision. And I really like that element.
Yeah. So one thing to
Yeah.
that is a case study that we will introduce in the final version of the book, and this is the fashion company called J. Crew,
Yeah, I know them. Yeah.
or the retail brand. They said that in this traditional process, work happens in meetings, work happens through PowerPoints, and work happens in departments.
Yeah.
So they started to see is that this, they call this information, this latency. They see that we're looking at information and we ask for review and decision making every time in a different step in the process. So
Yeah.
they said what they wanted to change is to say, like, well, the whole fashion um, uh, collection, the whole process from the beginning all the way to the production and logistics, there should be one working live table that everybody has insights in order to reduce all these barriers.
Yeah.
And it was really fascinating that I thought, yeah, this is if you would like to change the game in your industry, this is how you need to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what I like, and we also said it in the pre-discussion, what was really, let's say, what I found interesting in the book is what I'm going to say now sounds incredibly easy, but in practice is incredibly hard. I mean, what you make very, very clear in the book is that the starting point should be the client, the issue of the client, what the client wants to do, the act the client wants to perform, etc., etc. And when I read it, I thought, yeah, of course, it's logical. On the other hand, most environments in which I work or have worked start with a solution. So what is it psychologically that we tend to move so fast to, let's say, a solution rather than the customer problem? Can you explain that phenomenon?
Yeah, I think that the solutions feel tangible and exciting to work on.
Yeah.
So it's crisp and clear. You are in charge,
And we,
but
and we know and we
innovation.
know what needs to be done, because we,
Yeah,
we always organize, we do change management, or we do leadership development, or we design organization structures. So we have the toolkit.
yeah, exactly. So, but innovation rarely fails because of poor ideas. It more fails because of teams solve problems that customers don't actually have.
Yeah.
So we worked with a private wealth management company. And when we started to reach out to these customers first, they found this very exciting. They were afraid because wealthy clients, would they bother to talk to us? Because if we explain that we're not sure what problem we are solving, then we don't look good. But we insisted to talk to their clients, and the problem was not about the performance of the of the stock exchange or the way they would manage their portfolio. The problem was that these people felt a huge burden to manage the capital of the family and do that in a proper way. So nobody was interested in the performance of these companies, but way more to understand how this company could help them when they were sitting on the couch with their partner, and they would ask like, "Hey, now something happened in the world. What about our family capital?" That was the key problem that needs to be solved. And knowing that, then you could design a complete different service, even though the the managing the portfolio is still a part of the core business. But the most important thing is to have these eyes and ears and be there for these people 24/7,
Yeah.
knowing what they need to do.
Yeah.
So I find that all the time fascinating. And a lot of companies just step over this customer problem because it takes time. Then you need to
Yeah.
be vulnerable and
Yeah.
ask questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, a company that does a great job in that respect is Google, because I had the pleasure of spending some time with Google. I think it was last week, and actually that was fascinating. They invited a very small group of let's say power users. I think just 5 people all in all. But we were sitting in a room, let's say, with the UX designers and also with the product managers, and that was fantastic because the way that they worked was basically, well, Dirk, what do you in your work? If you basically, receive this, what's kind of your workflow look like? Where do our products fit in, and what works and what doesn't work? And
Yeah,
that's of
yeah,
course way more interesting than saying, well, here we designed something, but what do you think about it?
yeah,
Because,
yeah,
in a sense, because if you basically look at this from a workflow perspective, a lot of, let's say, features, might be technologically incredibly challenged, but if they don't fit in the way that you conduct, your workflow and way you conduct your activities, they're useless. So that's what I really liked in the accent of, or let's say in the focus of that book.
yeah.
Another thing which really struck me is you took, I think, the notion of personas to a different level because obviously for the last 4 or 5 years it's very en vogue to talk about persona. Like Simona is, in this age group and has children and does their shopping, etc., etc. That's all very fashionable. But you actually say, look, we should shift our focus from who the persona is to why they buy, and I thought that was a very powerful notion. Can you expand a little bit on that, Patrick?
Yeah, so one is when we ask teams in companies whether they know their clients, yes or no, they mostly stick to the fact that they know the demographics, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And then there's this classic example where you miss out if you only look at demographics. So, for example, imagine a person who is 50 plus, lives and works in the UK, is a male, very wealthy, very famous. Um, Both people fit in this profile. It's Prince Charles or King Charles, and it's also Ozzy Osbourne.
yeah,
Well, they have complete different behavior and therefore also acquire different things. So I think that demographics don't drive decisions, but motivations do. So
yeah,
it's not about people who buy products, it's more they buy progress. They would like to understand, or we need to understand the job to be done and see what kind of products or services are helping them to make progress,
yeah,
and that is essential. And now, when you look at um, this market, is not like a paper-based persona market anymore. It's about reaching out with your AI tools to understand, like, where do I find my customers online?
yeah,
What do I know about them, and how can I convert them into sales? So I just came from my weekly radio show, and there was a lady who started a complete new jewelry brand, And she said, like, yeah, every week we try to figure out again and again what is the reason and the occasion that these women buy jewelry, and that can change. So it's more like a dynamic process where it's about behavior and occasions, and not about demographics. Even though she knows that she's operating for ladies between 25 and 35 years old.
Yeah. No, but I think that's very thought stimulating, because my problem when I read your book is I've got an own executive coaching practice. And I was a little bit schizophrenic, because on the one hand, I had the idea of, okay, I want to intellectually understand this in order to have a meaningful conversation about it. And on the other hand, what does it mean for my business? How can I apply it? Do I really understand why people, buy my services, which problems I solve for them, or do I have the same thing, like, demographics, kind of, executives in a certain, let's say, age groups, working for certain industry sectors, etc., that have certain needs. But it's almost like I identify those needs when people, reach out to me, rather than on beforehand, thinking about it. So I thought it was a very, very powerful concept.
Yeah, and I have a short classic
Yeah,
example that we experienced like a few years back. There was a lady who took over her father's butchery shop in The
yeah,
Hague, and they were connected to ING Bank. So we said, "How can we help you?" Because they wanted to move into the city center. They were now outside the center, just to get more sales and more clients. So I asked her, "What is the single reason that your customers come to you?" And she said, "That's obvious. We have very good quality meat and so on." I said, "Well, just ask." So she asked that question for a week. She wrote down the answer on the back of the receipts. And you know what was the one reason that people would come to her butchery shop?
yeah. I can say a personality or
She said,
location.
"Carla, that was her name. It's so easy to park in front of your shop."
Yeah, yeah.
And she wanted to move into the city center where it's not able to park. So
No, 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 no.
that's
But in The Hague, that's impossible. That's basically, that's 5 to 10 euros an hour to simply to park. So, and then at least hundreds of meters. Yeah, yeah,
so knowing what is the problem that you try to solve with my services is similar like a strategy plan. So like, okay,
yeah,
let's put a strategy plan together. Okay, what problem are we solving with putting that plan together?
yeah,
So I think that notion is very interesting. Yeah.
yeah. No, I think it's super powerful. Hey, what I loved about your book, and it sounds trivial, but and it's a little bit digressing the main line of the conversation. But what I really loved is that you say that, and I just have to read it, that many organizations underestimate almost how much traditional tools reinforce silos. Because what I loved about it is, words kind of isolate thinking, PowerPoint compresses complexity, and email fragments conversations. That's really interesting, because also if I look at PowerPoint is almost a kind of a defense document, if you understand what I mean, right? It's kind of a statement like, these are my beliefs, here's why, and now, dare to challenge me when I arrive at the last page, rather than this is an invitation for a collaborative discussion. But what gave you the notion? Because I think that's a great insight. But
And so
what
we
gave you the
started to look
notion that
into
that traditional tools actually do not encourage but enforce positioning and isolation?
yeah. So for when we started producing the business model generation book back in 2009, then this was the first tool that was facilitating teams to work together.
Yeah,
And that's been ever since the DNA of my company. And when you try to solve a problem together, then you sit in a meeting room or in a workshop, and then you try to understand what happens often is that I'm going to put that PowerPoint doc together,
yeah,
or no, I will put a plan together, and you use tools like Word. But what happens is that it takes a lot of time to produce it. You will sit in the weekend, put that whole document together, and then it's fully polished. And then you say like, okay, now I ship it, and then this is the answer, and this is how it should be done. And the real world is not like that. So you see that these silos is where work happens in delivery of documents, work happens in meetings, and then we thought if you can just break that down, it's way more about collaboration, because now also with the result of the internet and AI, there is so much information available. So it's not about information anymore. It's not about the PowerPoint that's going to solve all the problems. The other thing when you think about it is that if you look at how departments operate and examples of organization in silos, if you look at marketing versus sales, so marketing focuses on lead volume. So they will deliver a lead, and sales would say the quality of the lead is not so good. So they receive the leads, and then nothing happens. So another one between product development and customer service. Then the product teams build the features, and product service is like, or sorry, customer service is like, hey, this is not something that is going to solve our problems. So you see that a lot of departments cleaning their own street or solving their own problems, and then they throw it out to the other one. And what
Hmm.
struck me most is that we did a project a year ago for a large international bank, and then we worked with the internal consultants. We worked in a Miro board. We gave access to everything, and we started to build the practice with the information coming from these customer interviews and so on. And the internal consultants were building the PowerPoint with research. So then we asked for the research. We didn't get the research. We waited for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and after four
Yeah.
weeks, ta-da! There was the report. We looked at the competitive landscape, and we said, "Hey, what about fintechs? What do they fintechs? Yeah, what do they do? Oh, we didn't look at that. Oh,
Yeah.
and they need another 3, 4 weeks in order to
Yeah.
put it
Yeah.
together." And that's this notion of silos. While um, you know, right now you can compare it with a bathtub. So we fill up the bathtub, we're all in there together, and we get the same level of knowledge, the same insights, and then we can make decisions and really co-create. So it was an aha moment, that we see that so many companies and people are used to work in silos. That's also how our careers have
Yeah.
moved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was also a perfect way in large companies how you could basically ensure that things failed. I mean, to be very honest, I worked a number of years in Shell, and the most successful way to let things fail in Shell was basically by expanding the scope and the number of departments and silos that needed to be included.
Yeah,
That worked
that's the fear of
brilliantly.
missing out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Fear
yeah,
of it. Yeah, we
maybe,
also need to be involved. Yeah.
yeah, no, because what I found in company, and Shell is just an example, but basically I think every company is almost the same. I mean, if I wanted a particular initiative to be successful, then I developed it with a small group until I had a kind of minimum viable product, and then I kind of made it open source to everyone. In case I thought this is a ridiculous initiative and it should fail, then I basically said, well, it's interesting, but we do that for upstream, but we also should involve people from downstream in the development. And I don't think that we should take a Dutch specific perspective, but we basically should take this in a kind of European context, because then you knew, let's say, the number of stakeholders that you involved, the chances of basically ever getting something quick, basically, almost reduced to zero. So I,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always I will
Yeah. Yeah.
always call it the law of Dirk. Hey, what what I also thought was a very important notion is that you said, look, our current the focus of most companies is around, let's say, products and product portfolios, um, and innovating existing products and services. But you basically say, well, look, actually, as a company, and certainly as a large size company, you should much more look at business models and a kind of, see yourself as a kind of portfolio of, let's say, business models in different stages of, maturity of the life cycle. Um, can you tell me your reasoning behind it and how it makes organizations more, let's say, future proof?
It's very simple. So if you have a product that can be copied,
Hmm.
if you look at the business model, it's harder to replicate. So if you look at a very successful Dutch company, the company is called Coolblue.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they
You
are
mentioned that
the
in your book. Yeah.
yeah, they are the Amazon equivalent.
Yeah.
And what the CEO said, he said the internet is the worst business model you can imagine. Why? If you look at a product like a washing machine, you can see the price online, and this is how you compete. So that's the product that can be replicated because anybody can offer that Bosch or Siemens washing machine. And what he said, looking back at what the problem to be solved, what is the problem if your washing machine is broken? So the problem is not to buy a new washing machine. The problem is that you would like to continue to wash, meaning you would like to buy the product, have it shipped at your home, take it 2, 3 stairs up, have it installed, take out the other one, and you can continue your process to clean your clothes. And what he started to do is he said, I realized that this is what people are willing to pay for.
Yeah.
So the first washing machine he shipped to the northern part of the Netherlands, he did it for free. Still, they do it for free. But this is what people are willing to pay for, and this is how you solve the problem. And that is all about the business model. So that is about how you create, deliver, and capture the value. And now, when
Yeah.
you look at all the competitors out there, Amazon, if you live in the Netherlands, you're not going to buy a washing machine with Amazon. I'm sorry, because
Yes.
you've got stuck with that product. You need to get rid of the old one. You need to deinstall and install. It's a hassle.
Yeah.
So it's this notion of the business model that is has to do with the channel, how you operate, with the activities you perform, with the services that you deliver. So therefore, products can be copied. Business models are way harder to copy.
Yeah. But I think that's an excellent example because you can easily say, well, if that is your model, let's say for a washing machine, then it basically extends to also a freezer, a cooler, a dryer. There are loads of, let's say, expansion models. And but what I also loved about your notions, going back to the earlier part of our conversation, I think it's an excellent example, Cool Blue, of um, the problem of the customer is not buying a washing machine. The problem of the customer is basically, well, to put it in technical terms, the continuation or the business continuity of the clothing washing
Of the
process
household,
of the household, which is a different proposition than buying, let's say, the buying a washing machine. Yeah, yeah.
nobody cares about more features on your washing machine.
No, I've never used the Bluetooth possibility on. No, no. I know it's there, but I bet you I think less than 10 or 5% of the people cares
Why would
about.
we care?
Yeah, I can
Wait a minute,
remotely.
Dirk. I need to control my washing machine.
No worry. Yeah,
Uh,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, yeah. We basically sit at a party, and how's your washing machine doing? Yeah. No, I think absolutely right. It's typical case of a feature.
just a minute. I'll look it up. How it's doing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. I think it's typically it's a solution in search of a problem. Um, Hey, the thing is, what I liked about the book is as I already said, is let's say the very very strong philosophy behind it, the practical nature. It's almost like you can basically do it. It's kind of almost kind of manual type of
Yeah.
approach to business planning. Um, At the same time, you also advocate, collaboration tools, and for instance, you share your experiences with Miro in that respect. You also advocate the use for AI. So, can collaborative frameworks be successfully implemented without modern collaboration tools like Miro or AI? Or, in a sense, are they an essential prerequisite, or are they a strong catalyst? How do you see that?
Yeah, so if you look at the without modern collaboration tools and AI, partly that can be done.
Hmm.
So we started that in 2010 with the paper business model canvas,
Yeah,
but then the single use case was to put it in on the wall and
yeah,
do workshopping,
yeah,
and that was the true benefit.
yeah,
What you saw happening is when these tools like Miro started to evolve, then there came this digital layer, and it was more we called it the second wave, like visual clustering. So now
hmm
knowing all that information is online, we can visually cluster it. We can be way faster than the paper canvas and so on. But I never expected that when I worked on this book that the progress of this Miro and AI was going so fast that right
Yeah.
now is the visual context processing. So having all that information in a digital canvas, we can produce summaries, we can produce prototypes, we can produce or reproduce documents. So you see that AI and the digital collaboration tools dramatically increase speed, scale, and learning. And they're not necessarily the starting point, but they're more the amplifiers, so to say.
Yeah. 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 More kind of they facilitate and enable. They're more kind of enablers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We already talked about it, and I thought it was an interesting example of the group of internal consultants where you worked with within the bank that basically relied on PowerPoints and a linear development process. Um, I think the proposed way of working, in my perspective, would also require quite a culture change in
yeah,
traditional companies, right? Because silos are associated with, for lack of a better word, autonomy, power, status, own responsibilities, our nature, our own culture. And now basically everyone is asked to contribute in a kind of, almost non-hierarchical way to solve a common challenge. In my perception, that requires a tremendous cultural change process. So my question would be, A, do you also see that culture change as a kind of prerequisite, and B, what can companies do to facilitate it?
yeah. So absolutely true. So I see that it requires a big change,
Hmm.
and going back also to the linear fashion of how we are used to operate, then we are building, for example, a strategy plan about knowing and expecting what we know. And that could have worked until 1990 or 2000, but we're not open or looking forward to being confronted with what we don't know. So if you think that you know what you know, then you put this strategy plan together and you said, now you're going to act based on this plan. But then there's this famous saying from, I think it was Muhammad Ali, that if you step
Yeah,
into the
it's
ring
Tyson.
with your
Yeah,
plan, yeah, or
yeah,
Tyson, sorry.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then when you get the first punch,
yeah,
then the plan is different. And I think now also with this World Championship soccer last month, you can talk about the game for hours,
yeah,
but who would expect different results with teams because everything is
yeah,
changing? So what does that mean? Is this culture shifts from control to collaboration.
yeah,
So then you need to allow teams and people to happen to work like that. So you need to create the psychological safety, um, reward experimentation, and empower teams to learn continuously rather than execute on fixed plans. And
yeah,
therefore, we see more that is not like individual execution of a plan. It's way more like collaborative sprints, looking at the same data, how we are confronting our consumers with our products, what we learn from failure, etc. So this notion of collaboration is there, but then leaders should not be focused on, is this finished? Is not interesting question. What is more interesting? What do we learn from our clients, and how can we do a better job?
yeah, yeah. Because you also used in your book, and I already implemented that. I recommended to do that to a client earlier this week, who wanted to enter with a particular service to consulting industry, pre-selling. You had, what I loved in your book was very original ideas on testing the potential market. But rather than me saying it, can you tell something? Because I love the concept of pre-selling.
Um,
Yeah,
Let me
but
look
you
into.
basically, yeah, you basically said things like, well, you can start off with pilot customers with, let's say, a reduced fee rate, but anything to see is there really, let's say, the willingness to buy, other
Yeah, so for
than, let's
example, like
say, yeah,
a few important things. Like one is, if you look at um, validation in that
yeah,
innovation process, there are basically two ways to look into that. So
yeah,
one is problem validation, and the other way is solution validation. And what I found very interesting, there was this um, company in the US, and Karen, she was a designer. The company was called Intuit, which is a
I know them.
accounting
Yeah,
system.
yeah, correct. Yeah,
It's like the Salesforce, but then for small, medium
yeah,
enterprises.
yeah,
And then she said, I want to study more about what are the customer problems. So she said, I'm going to sleep with our customers. I'm going to bed with them. So everybody was in shock. They thought, like, what is she saying? But she spent time with entrepreneurs and families to figure out when are they doing their accounting. And that's not during the day. It's not in the evening. It's in the weekend mostly.
yeah,
So
yeah,
then she said,
correct. Yeah, yeah. Case in point. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So then she started to learn that it was way more about um, offering a solution during the weekend and to help them out on different things. And I
Exactly,
think that,
exactly.
and like when you look at that process of early confrontation in
Yeah,
pre-sales, it is about understanding the real pains. It is about exploring these jobs to be done, and also sending out small triggers to get responses earlier on. And what we learned in this whole process of customer validation, it is very time consuming. It is very costly. But now, when you look at these AI tools, you can already um, set up an agent. So we set up different agents in the Miro software, but you can do that otherwise with other systems. And you explain this is the behavior of that person, and then you can ask that person questions to figure out would our service be applied, and also if so, what is the type of language that we need to use in the go-to-market strategy. So I
yeah,
think that you're right about that. It's about not coming with the end solution, figuring out really like what is the right response that people will connect to, and are people willing to pay for such specific service?
yeah. If let's say the CEO of a struggling Fortune 500 company came to you and said, "Look, I'm totally bought in. We need to start doing this." What would you recommend him or her to do? At least, let's say, as the first steps.
Yeah, so I think one thing straight away is to do dog fooding, eat the dog food. Said, okay, so what is the real problem that you would like to solve?
Yeah,
For example, is it about um, improving services, or is it a new invention, or something like that? But
yeah,
then the key thing is at the beginning, don't transform the entire company, but start with one specific growth challenge. And
yeah,
when you look at the book, we interviewed Steve Moistin, a Oxford professor
yeah.
on
Who, who
leadership.
I interviewed earlier this week. Yeah, yeah. We talked about
Yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah,
and one thing what I liked about him is that he said like frame the challenge,
yeah,
frame the challenge, frame the challenge.
yeah,
Meaning we just first need to understand what this challenge is about, but then start early with a very small team, and then
yeah,
involve customers quickly, and then start to get that information and see what you learn. So we did it with one of our companies that we recently started with, and then we just asked like reach out to these customers. Why did they buy our services? If they would not buy it, what was the alternative? And after 1 week, everybody had did a short interview, and there was tons of information that were coming up. So it is just the thing is that if you start small and you get those early insights, that's where team and people start to become addicted and get the dopamine to say like, wow, this is something that we can get out of it. And you shouldn't outsource these kind of services to third-party research companies. And it's not about the statistic formula anymore. It's about
Yeah,
that you need to show.
it's the lived experience, which is
Yeah, but we don't know. It's not about asking 500 customers for
no,
Mars chocolate to do a good job of customer research. No, it is about, are we feeling comfortable as a team that we are on top of this? And is this enough information? Meaning, if you hear less and less new information at the next interview, then you're right on top
yeah.
and you're on track.
Yeah, but I think that's a very powerful notion because I think the classical approach, how I've been brought up, is that you would say to the CEO, well, we start with, let's say, redesigning your organization. We start, let's say, with training the people to work in a new way of working. And I think you're absolutely right. It kind of bypasses the action. What is the problem you're trying to solve? And the problem, let's say, that one of my clients is trying to solve is that. His business model actually is becoming more and more obsolete. And that's the problem. So it makes much more sense to have a team work in a new way of working on that specific item rather than to say, well, we're going to have a kind of blanket approach across the organization. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is also, and that's also in a linear way, we make big mistakes, is when you look at looking into some problem that you would like to solve, then very few people are excited to look into that because it's different. It's not what they're used to. So again, going back to Steve Moistin, he talks about the dance floor. And I think if you think about the dance floor first, there are not many people there. But these people are always the same. And you should focus on the dance floor because these people make a change. They are curious. They would like to make things happen. And that's the
Yeah.
core group that you need to start with. There's no need to convince every person in the company because simply people are not wired for those kind of new challenges.
Yeah. If I go, my last part of this interview, I would like to spend on the book because it's a very, let's say, I would almost anti-traditional in the way you produced it because my question is, how did you successfully gather and coordinate more than 250 authors to contribute to this book? I mean, I'll give you an example. I worked on a textbook on management together with two other authors years and years ago, and even with the three of us, it was already incredibly hard to make sure that what we did was actually aligned. And so I wonder if the with 250 seems to take that factors more complicated. So how did you do that, Patrick?
Yes, one is you need to start with a very clear point of view. You
Hmm.
need to understand like what is the topic that you want to work on, and what is it that you
Yeah,
would like to bring across. Otherwise, it's super hard. So my point of view was paper canvas into a digital canvas, different ballgame. So we created some content for that, and then I thought I do not need to step in the same trap. Uh, Creating somebody that nobody is willing to pay for or nobody is excited about. So I thought if we create a substantial group of people, like peers, like-minded people,
yeah.
then the work can be better and I can validate that. So I started with a Kickstarter campaign and had people pay for it. So it was quite exciting because that
Oh,
was
that's the
last summer.
pre-selling. The pre-selling.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
pre-selling. I wasn't
yeah,
sure if that would really happen,
yeah.
and in the end, Giorgio Ferrari from Italy, he bought the case study, and then the Kickstarter campaign was was successful. And then I also invited some people for free who were experts, and I'm mindful of their opinion, and I thought they could set the next step. So we had this cohort of 250 people, knowing when you look at the dance floor, not everybody will dance at the same time and will be on the dance floor. So I
Yeah.
thought then I would have like 30 to 50 people who can show up regularly and going to do that process. But then you need to have the digital infrastructure where you collaborate. So if people would respond in email with
Yeah,
responses
yeah,
on
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Word,
Yeah,
it's not going to
yeah,
happen.
yeah,
So we realized that with Bismarck Generation back in 2008, 9, and now what I did with the Miro boards,
yeah,
we invited people on Fridays. And then I said, listen, this is the structure of the book. These are the key topics that we want to address. What do you think? So the first few times we had over 200 people in that room. They were throwing their post-it notes in that room for 5 minutes. My colleague would collect those post-it notes, run an AI summary, and straight away we were in the heart of our target audience, explaining me and all of us together what we found relevant on what that book would be about.
Yeah.
So I saw that it was super powerful. So we then ran this process like brainstorming what kind of problems to solve. Then in
Hmm.
that same week, we would bring that to a content and visuals. Then again, we would get feedback, and that's how we put the book together.
Now, and how do you coordinate 200? Yeah, maybe it's a very stupid question, but how do you coordinate work of 250 people in a sense of I'm writing something about a particular topic, you might write something about a particular topic as well. Our stories might not be 100% aligned or overlapped. I bring an ego to writing the book. You might have an ego as well. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, so one thing is that you just need to let it go. You just need to
Hmm.
let it happen and see what happens. So we had many very interesting people showing up. One of them was Daniel Croker,
Yeah.
a very, very interesting designer from Mexico, whom I happened to meet last month in real life. And he was way more advanced in terms of knowledge about, for example, the customer problem and so on. So then we realized that if we would create the book with his knowledge, it would be this in terms of content. But then we realized we should bring it back to the proportion that everybody can still understand.
Yeah, that's
Um,
digestible. Yeah.
the digestible. And the other thing, what you see is that in the back of my mind, are the constraints in the number of pages.
Yeah, no,
So
exactly. Yeah.
we had to make decisions, but in the end, I felt that when we explained what kind of decision we made, then it was fair.
Yeah.
So we really got a lot of good feedback, and it was also about who shows up during the week on the Fridays and what feedback we would get. But yeah, and like one thing struck me also, like Peter Seeker from Austria. He is a little bit older than I am, and he said every time, Patrick, this text is enough, please come with the visuals. So what I also then started to learn is then when you look at the book, if you look at people in mind, you have a filter. So you look at the page and you assume that you know what this book is going to be about. So we played with visuals that we triggered a different response. So when we talk about dog fooding, we
Mhm.
visualized a dog with another person who was eating the dog food, because then your mind is triggered and geared towards that topic instead of, oh, I know what the book is about. So we really learned a lot with these different perspectives from all these co-creators.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was actually my last question. It's interesting. You were kind enough to send me what is in your terminology a bad copy. And I downloaded it immediately. I opened it up. I basically scrolled, and then I was immediately struck by the visuals because the graphics are so extremely strong in terms of amplifying the message, uh, but also making the book just from a design perspective alone. Let's say already great to kind of review. And you also call that, I think, Brooklyn street art. So what drove the decision and what inspired you to adopt this Brooklyn street art style of illustrating the book?
Yeah, that's a very interesting topic. So when I was in October 2025 in Brooklyn, that was a pivotal moment when you look at my business, meaning the strategy and innovation space. So I was standing next to Andre from Miro, who showed with the whole team like what they've been working on, and this was workflows that now could be automated in Miro. It was about sidekicks, that agents that could help you on the process. So I never ever saw something like that. And then when we were in Brooklyn, I thought like, yeah, I thought this is quite interesting inspiration because he was very vulnerable to throwing his ideas out, and he was not scared for any feedback like that. And then I thought, like, yeah, when it comes to street art, then you also see that innovation or product improvement is messy, it's creative, it's human. And the street art also symbolizes diverse voices coming together to create
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
bigger than an
Yeah.
individual contribution.
Completely different style figures.
Yeah, but also
Yeah.
like you trigger a response when
Yeah.
you put something out there, maybe
Yeah.
somebody else is throwing something over that.
Yeah.
And I had this idea for quite some time, but I didn't know how to play it well in the book. So on the one hand, I thought if it's not there, it's a very boring book. If it's there, it is design-wise something that people will pick up maybe earlier on and
Yeah.
inspired about that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then I thought, like, yeah, this is actually the way we should. And it's not explicitly out there, but if you're curious, we write it in the book. We wrote in
Yeah.
the book why we put it there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I absolutely loved it. Hey, thank you so much for the interview, Patrick. I highly yeah, and enjoyed it. I learned a lot from it. As I said, it's the best book in business planning I read in the last 5 plus years. I'm actually using it for my own practice, and I will include all the details where people can buy the book in the show notes. So
Yeah. So yeah.
thank you
So
so
first, like,
much. Yeah,
so I would like to thank you because like we put a lot of work
yeah,
in a book and content, and when it's picked up and also recognized and you articulate it like that, that is a big aha moment also for me, but also very rewarding because what we want to do with this book is that in the final version that you can also get access to the templates and can start
yeah,
doing this by yourself. So I
yeah,
really believe that we can then create more impact to make it like easy, accessible for
yeah,
people to tap into such a process. And if you would like to work with consultants or get advice, it's fine. But it's also something that you'd be able to do it yourself, and
yeah,
that's what excites me most. And then also meeting new people like you, also through relationship with,
yeah.
for example, Steve. Yeah, that's what I really like.
Super.
So thank you for
Thank
that.
you so much, Patrick.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you too.